So one time I disposed of a Hatman, and actually a few times I've disposed of them in cemeteries. I've just gone, especially Catholic cemeteries, because once again, Catholic priests are excellent ceremonial magicians, and they do all the work for me, and they're paid for it. So they've gone and made like a nice consecrated place where I can just drop a crystal in a nice discreet place, and I'll let that energy of the cemetery do its thing. The cemeteries are really good at breaking down energy.
God's a kid with an ant farm. He's not planning it.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Ideas are beautiful. Be my victim.
Welcome to the Victim Matrix podcast. We're your two hosts. I'm Vera. Pronouns are she, her.
They, them, Raven. Hello.
And we're joined today with Mark. I want to say it's Necamp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I could have swore I heard you say it both ways.
Well, I kind of go both ways on a lot of things, so that works just fine.
I can tell that you definitely fit the vibe that like we go for on our show. I was worried that it was going to be a little too serious, but yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Chicago. Right now, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm kind of settling in the South right now. But my main thing is I love to teach magic. I've been an occult pagan teacher formally for about 15 years. I used to do tarot readings for about 20 years. Right now, I do a lot of writing and teaching. I have a book out called Energy Magic, where I'm trying to make magic more accessible, where I literally try to take everything I've learned from studying probably half a dozen magical systems and trying to get it down to the practical results so that literally anybody can pick magic up. So it's for the kind of the sideline is a basic and advanced guide for witches and pagans, but literally I had a book signing at Barnes and Noble, and half the people that bought my book were Christian that said, "Oh, I've always been interested in magic, and I'm really interested in some of these techniques." So it's really kind of interesting how magic really is a universal thing, and just how I hope that energy and looking at things in an energy way. But I'll kind of get back to that. But
Yeah.
I just want everyone to be empowered really at the end of the day.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about how you kind of got into magic?
Sure. So my mom was very, very open-minded, and the church that I grew up Catholic, and I'm biracial, so I'm kind of used to kind of one foot in one world and one foot in the other. So I grew up Catholic, but my mom was always interested in like spooky stuff and the occult. And there was a hoodoo candle store that was just down the street from where I lived practically. And there's this old black guy named Goldfinger, and he had a gold tooth, and he had his name stitched on his on his one piece mechanic outfit. And he said, "Hey, there's something about you, kid. Let me teach you some things." So he kind of put me in the right direction on hoodoo, which for those who don't know, hoodoo is really a combination of African folk magic with Catholic, like Christianity in a lot of ways. So I learned from that. At the same time, my best friend growing up was Hindu, and so he was really like kind of said, "Hey, you seem kind of interested in Eastern philosophy and religion. Let's have this conversation." And I'll go to the Hare Krishna temple in Chicago. At the same time, I also went to a lot of Buddhist centers and learned a lot about Buddhist meditation. And at the same time, I got really interested in like shamanism. So I started learning about like what would be called core shamanism. Even though it's kind of like a misnomer, and we can talk about the problems with that terminology some other time.
How old were you around this time period?
I was about 17.
Okay.
And then when I was 18, 19-ish, then I basically started working at the local pagan shop where I went to college in Champaign-Urbana. And they kind of took me under their wing, and the manager of that pagan shop became like my first high priestess for the first coven I was into.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm very curious if you've read two books that in Salem, Massachusetts, one of the oldest shops there, they recommended the two books. I can quickly grab them when I'm nervous. I can't remember the authors and all that, but I'll quickly grab that. Very curious if you've read them.
Could be.
So we got Instant Magic by Christopher. I'll show you the book. If you can see on there.
Yep, Christopher Penczak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met Penczak. He's a great guy.
That's awesome. Very cool. What can you tell us about him? That's awesome. It's a great book.
Yeah, I was actually teaching at what's called a Pagan Unity Festival, and he was one of the other teachers there. So I met him, and I was hanging out with, he's a pretty cool dude, but I actually hung out and got to know Judica Ellis more, wrote like the Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, Dorothy Morrison, and she's just kind of living legend of witchcraft. She's amazing. But for like touring the country and just teaching everywhere, I've met like a lot of the pagan authors that are probably on most people's bookshelves right now. So
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
cool.
Nice. That's cool to hear someone that met the author of a book that was recommended to me, and I'm still going through it. So reading it's a really great book.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Can you tell us a little bit about that first coven?
Yeah, sure. So it was myself, I think they're out, I don't know, woman at the time, she went by Jackie. Um, then two friends of mine that were my roommates was a lesbian couple they were just hysterical. They were just like some of my closest friends at the time. So there's the five of us. It's one, two, three, four. Oh yeah, and this very tall, handsome goth gentleman named Eric. Um, and it was like the five of us, and we really learned from each other. Jackie took a lot of notes from, I guess you could say, like Scott Cunningham, kind of like the kind of that sort of flavor of Wicca, but also a bit from Starhawk. And Starhawk, if you kind of do some research for those who don't know, she was really one of the founders of reclaiming, and what differentiates reclaiming from a lot of like standard Wicca and a lot of stuff that's out there is it's more ecstatic. There's more of like you're doing like dancing and chanting and more movements where, the background of Wicca is really more like ceremonial magic. And so it kind of the differences there, like with ceremonial magic versus something more ecstatic. With ceremonial magic, you really need to do your homework and try to internalize these symbols so they resonate within you. But with more kind of like a shamanistic, ecstatic paradigm, if you will, you're really like working with the body, you work with the energy. It's really more what's the word? More improvisational, you can say. It's more in the
Yeah.
moment. It's more grounded in the body. So both approaches can work pretty well, and I would argue very strong you can get the same results with either way, but just different ways to go about it. And honestly, though, I would say kind of a mixture of the ecstatic and the more ceremonial, you probably get the best results.
It's awesome.
So you've done a lot with ceremonial magic, I take it.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually did a lot of stuff with the Golden Dawn, and I was initiated in that back in the day. Also, I was a chaos magician. Actually, I still am in a lot of ways, and it's really a misnomer because what chaos magic really is postmodern magic. It's just a way of saying, hey, we have all these old magical systems. Let's kind of find a way to practice these techniques in a contemporary way. But it's also like having a lot of fun. So one chaos magic thing might be, let's say it was like traditional ceremonial magic. Maybe let's say you're working with an Egyptian deity. With chaos magic, I literally did a workshop on possession work, and someone was possessed by their version of Doctor Who that they liked the most. So,
Oh wow. That was one thing I was very curious about myself, and I know you said you were curious too about possession, because I'm only used to hearing about possession being thrown around about, like what Christianity and whatnot, but
sure.
really
I mean, a lot of people really, get there's a lot of fear. And I think that whole satanic panic thing really, did a bad job for learning actual occult techniques that are useful. So I'm going to kind of go back up a little bit to get where I need to go. So kind of like a dichotomy, kind of like a way that some people kind of classify different magic is thaumaturgy and theurgy. And thaumaturgy is stuff like, hey, I need to do a spell to get a new job. It's really the basic stuff of, it's kind of low magic. It's, the magic of what you need right then and there, or stuff on the mundane plane, like a love spell, for example. That's a good example of thaumaturgy. Theurgy, on the other hand, is magic that's used to connect to the divine. So, Catholic priest, excellent ceremonial magicians. They're using theurgy to connect to God, that whole transformation of the host and all that stuff. That's definitely theurgy. Now, the other way to look at that is with possession work, and you get this really in voodoo, and you get this in the Seder trance and like Norse paganism or heathenry, where you're getting possessed by a god or goddess or other entity. And the whole thing there that I really love is I don't have to pray to like Sky Daddy way up there. You know, I can talk to Hecate, I can talk to Loki, I can talk to Odin, I can talk to Aphrodite, you know, whoever embodied in the flesh. You know, you can, depending on the skill of the practitioner, you can get some pretty accurate information, and get some real strong guidance. But even if you're not asking questions, even if you're not, you know, the person's not verbal, you still feel a difference. You can even like see a difference sometimes. And I find that very powerful and meaningful to actually have a deity right in front of me and have that very intimate connection.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
I mean, this might be a bit of a side, like a curveball question, but have you done any work with the Necronomicon?
So it's really funny you say that. So when I was 17, when I started all this stuff, I actually got a copy of the Necronomicon at the local Barnes and Noble. And I was like, oh, you know, I thought, oh, this will be cool, this will be edgy, this will be fun.
That's what I did too.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so what I found is it had a lot of the, shall we say, the evocations. And evocation is more of like you're evoking something outside of yourself, like a spirit, versus invocation, like a deity possessing you. So it had a lot of evocations, but it didn't have any banishings. And so my basement got really freaking weird for a while, just trying to work with the Necronomicon. People are like, dude, what are you doing in here to like kill a cat or something? Or like, you know, what the hell's going on? But I didn't kill any cats. No animals have been harmed in the spiritual
Thank you
practice.
for clarifying. We don't
So
need another Netflix documentary.
yeah, all right, exactly. So, but yeah, I did work with the Necronomicon just for fun. There is a really good occultist named Donald Tyson. He wrote a magician's workbook that's really, really good for, especially if you're starting out on the occult. And he actually did a Necronomicon book where he tried to take some of the Necronomicon mythos and find a way to work with it in a ritualistic manner that, you know, would have some beneficial results.
Yeah, I mean, I picked it up originally right around the time I was getting into Anton LaVey and Intro to
Mhm.
Satanism and all that stuff. And I think that's
Sure.
usually the same like avenue a lot of edgy goth kids go through when they're like just getting into
Yeah,
Satanism and stuff. So I was just
absolutely.
curious and learning just, you know, that there is, even though it's not like, I don't know, some people want to debate whether it works or not. It's up for debate, but knowing that it was actually based on, what is it, Mesopotamian?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Theoretically.
It gave me a little bit of realness, but I didn't really get into any of the actual magic stuff until you came into my life.
Oh,
So
really? I
no,
forgot about
really,
that. Oh,
like I didn't really dabble with it. I just read about it and was like, oh, this is fascinating.
for me, it was paganism, very first start, or Wicca, and then paganism, and then kind of just dabbled in different, you know, read a little bit about Satanism, but that wasn't for me. And then Luciferianism kind of spoke more to me, and then learned about Buddhism, things like that. But
A
yeah,
lot of
Yes.
it's just
picked
been
up a
like a
lot of
path
the,
of studies,
yeah,
you know.
just constantly studying. Like the other book was by Matt Oren, Matt Oren. If I'm saying it right. Mastering
Yeah.
Magic is another book that's really good.
Mhm. I've
Um,
never met him personally, but I have friends that know him and speak very highly of him. He seems like a
oh,
pretty
that's
cool dude.
awesome.
So
Yeah, that's what the shop owner told me in Salem. They're both books. So I was like, yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I guess one of the other questions we were very curious about, because in that podcast episode that we listened to, which for anybody who might not know what we're talking about, we first heard of you through an episode of Tinfoil Tales, and the
Sure.
clickbait title being "He Killed Hatman." So don't worry,
Yes.
we will get to that. We have a lot of questions about that, but there
Sure.
were a couple things that came up that were very intriguing. Talking about being possessed by angels and demons, and
Sure.
I felt like there was a lot more that could have been told about, you know, different angels and demons you may or may not have worked with or
Sure.
tried to work with and didn't work out, or just, you know, in general. What could you tell us about that experience?
Sure. So the way I like to entertain, like one kind of point of view here, that either magic is all just psychology, and we could call it ritualized psychology. On the other hand, we've got like real woo-woo crazy mysticism that, is very mysterious and very mystical, and we have no idea what the heck might be actually be going on. So I kind of try to stay in the middle. So as such, I'm going to give you kind of my real quick spin on demons, especially the goetic demons, which are really popular, and of course in the Lesser Key of Solomon. So the way that I personally approach those demons is that in the story, King Solomon prays to God, prays to Jehovah, for assistance. And, the Archangel Raphael comes and gives him a pentacle ring. And with that ring gives him command over, 72 different spirits. Now, those spirits, some of them, do your research, some of them actually kind of seem a little bit like gods that were demonized. That seems pretty easy to conclude. But it's interesting that he gets like 72. Now, there's also kind of this teaching of like 72 different angels. Now, kind of going back a little bit in Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, and like a lot of Kabbalah is the heart of ceremonial magic. So with that, you can talk about that Kabbalah and a lot of Jewish mysticism is about a map of the universe, which is the tree of life. And on this map, well, something kind of weird happens. So this map isn't just a map of the universe, but it, as above, so below. The map that all these mystical systems talk about is the map of the universe, but also the map of the self. So that being said, going back to Solomon's summoning these demons, and he's working on a temple. You can really say that the temple Solomon's really working on is the temple of the perfected self. And this is where kind of like, Kabbalah and like Freemasonry kind of mixing and mingling here. So that being said, really the Lesser Key of Solomon isn't about making deals with demons. It's really about dealing with your demons and using these 72 demons as a map of, a psychological map, and the way to master these forces of the self. So kind of that being said, those demons kind of being in charge of different parts of the psyche, I almost liken that to how different deities are in charge of different aspects of nature. For example, Zeus being a, storm god, or lightning, or thunder and lightning god, or, Poseidon or Neptune being in charge of the ocean. But of course, we can talk about the ocean being the unconscious mind, or a realm of spirit. We can talk about a lot of different things that these deities are. Yes, these deities, demons, or angels are separate forces, and that's where we kind of talk about hard polytheism. But we can also say that they're kind of in charge of different aspects of existence, of nature, but that nature is also human nature. So that's kind of my spiel on demons. But I do believe that their energies are within us, but you can also work with them outside of us. Now, whether they're real or not, I say they're real, and I work with them as real, just like I'll talk to someone on the phone who I've never met on the internet and say, oh yeah, you're real and you're not an AI. So what's real? That's a real question we can we can drink or smoke at till 3 a.m. and discussing,
We did a whole 2-part podcast where we talked about simulation theory. And then we also followed that up with talking about the various different conspiracy theories of things that aren't real and ways that people craft these conspiracies around things not being real. Like, it's
Sure.
wild what people will come up with.
I think a lot of that personally is like self-hypnosis. I mean, just like, if someone misplaces a jar of mayonnaise in the fridge and then they say, I can't find this jar of mayonnaise, where did it go? And then they ask their partner, hey, did you see that jar of mayonnaise? And it's right in front of them. It's not that like the Fae, well, maybe, that's a whole different podcast, but it's not that the Fae went and, hid your jar of mayonnaise. It's that you self-hypnotize yourself into thinking that jar of mayonnaise was in one place and it was actually in another.
I believe that.
Oh yeah, I deal with object permanence pretty often. That's a very common ADHD thing.
But I want to say real quick, thank you for explaining views of demonology and like what you said a few moments ago, because for me that was really reassuring, because for the longest time with trying to research magic and understand it myself and what's real, what's not real, and that middle ground, what you explained, that's exactly how I've been feeling and how I struggle trying to explain it to Vera when she first asked me a long time ago about like, okay, well, what do you believe? Like, what is this, like believing in spirits and what have you? And it was reassuring hearing another person have very similar to what I've like thought myself. I'm like, huh, is this,
Well, also
am I
I
the only one
liked
thinking this, kind of
I liked how he touched on gods and demons. That's kind of a matter of perspective because it's really easy to demonize any kind of deity.
Mhm.
And I think that's really crucial when you're working with any kind of and again, I don't know what I'm talking about really, especially not compared to you, but from what I understand of it is like your perspective is everything. If you go into working with demons thinking, oh, these spirits are going to do this, that, or the other, well, you're unconsciously kind of bringing that into the universe in a way. You're kind of bringing that on yourself. So that's where like a lot of it is like mindfulness and
law of attraction, maybe. I don't know.
Something like that.
Law of attraction.
I think it's more about relationships. So like if someone comes in my house, like I will help anybody. Like if you said, I've literally given my last buck to people on the street, if I feel like they're really needed or they're starving or something. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, Mark, I need some help, and they're really polite, I'm going to help them. Okay. If someone comes from across the street and says, I think you're a devil worshiper, not in the fun way or the good way, and I think you're a devil worshiper and you're going to hell, but hey, can you help me with my tire, down the road? I'm going to tell them to fuck off. Okay. That's just the end of the story there. Same thing with demons and deities and even angels. Oh man, don't piss off an angel. Trust me. But it's really about relationship. And even with deities, like, of course, like Hecate, you can approach them in different ways. And you can have different relationships with deities. Like, for example, with deities, like I used to be a priest of Dionysus, my relationship with Dionysus was very much like as a mentor, as a friend. He was like my divine wingman in a lot of ways. But my relationship with Hecate is very much, as like a teacher, like I am in her service. So just like we have different relationships and we have different facets, if you see me like in my corporate job, I'm gonna be dressed one way. If you see me at the golf club, I'm gonna be dressed a completely different way. So it's all about different aspects, talking those different aspects and having relationships with them. And I think at the core, of course, is respect. So.
Oh
I
yeah,
agree.
very well said.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
Would you like to start kicking into some Hatman shit then?
Oh yeah, sure.
So for anybody here who might not have heard that episode of Tinfoil Tales, give us like a brief rundown of kind of your experience with the Hatman. I know you said in that episode you dealt with at least 5, but you gave a very detailed description of your own personal experience with a Hatman, as well as one that you helped a friend with. And those two stories were very, very interesting.
So I'll kind of break it down, sum it up, just so I'm not repeating myself completely.
Yeah.
So I've done and I'll do exorcisms, and by exorcisms, I mean, I can depossess people. It's not the most fun. I don't recommend it if you don't know what you're doing, like when I first started out, and it's a whole different conversation. But a lot of the stuff I do, there'll be spirits, usually the departed, not always. And I'll basically send them on. And it's really simple of typically that I'll connect to the afterlife because I've kind of have like one foot there, which is a different story, create a portal, and then I'll literally escort them over, if they're nice. If they're not so nice, that's a whole different thing. And you have to do what my ex-magical partner used to say, banish with extreme prejudice. So now, that all being said, I've done like exorcisms, and I work with the dead, no big deal, right? And now I also have a background as an energy healer, back in the day, and especially with chakras and auras and the energetic body and that sort of thing. And I'm also a Reiki practitioner. So I've done a lot of like what you can call psychic surgery of people that have had like parasites. And then if people don't know what the heck I'm talking about, literally like your energy can be outside of yourself. Like when I'm talking about energy, like if you've had to go in a room where someone had an argument, it feels different, right?
Yep.
So that emotional energy, that chi, that life force, those vibes, whatever you want to call it, those can externalize sometimes and affect and infect people. And sometimes someone like me has to remove them, as a surgeon would, but just with energy. So I'm used to all that stuff. So a friend of mine said, "Hey, I've got this thing that might be a parasite. Can you help me out?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know, no problem. I gotcha." And I was like, just feed me, give me dinner afterwards. And I do all this stuff for free for the most part, just for the simple reason that I found that the people who need the most help are usually the ones who are the most broke. So, oh well, I'm not gonna be making my money on exorcisms. Anyway, so I said, "What's your symptoms?" And I always approach these things with analysis. Even if someone says, "Hey, I think my ex cursed me," I'm like, "Okay, what are your symptoms? Let's talk about this, as you would if there's like a medical problem." And I find that the best way to kind of approach this stuff with, clear thinking and mindfulness. So he tells me his symptoms, and his symptoms are lack of energy, um, and that he saw an entity that was a very shadowy entity that seemed to be around him. He also had some sleep paralysis and nightmares. I said, "Okay, that's pretty bad. No problem." And he said, "I'm really worried." And I said, "Why are you worried?" He's like, "Well, my mom, who's not into the occult, saw the thing too." I said, "Okay, that's kind of troubling." And it's like, "Well, when?" And he said, "In broad daylight." And that kind of like gave me goosebumps. I'm like, okay, if you're seeing something nasty and it's giving you the heebie-jeebies and it's daylight, there's definitely a problem. So I kind of did some investigation to kind of speed the story along. His family had this mysterious heart condition that killed like 4 generations around the exact same year, like almost like clockwork, which is spooky as hell. And so then I kind of Googled it, and I feel like an episode of Supernatural for fuck's sake. And so I'm Googling the symptoms, and like I get all this stuff on Hatman, and I was like, oh, well, shit. I didn't even know that this thing existed. And it's like a lot of people think it's fake. And I actually went on a bunch of occult groups I'm on. And I said, "Hey, I know I'm going to sound crazy, even for someone who's into the occult, but has anyone ever dealt with this? And how do I get rid of it?" And everyone laughed at me. And I'm not going to say who laughed at me because I'm not like that. But let's just say some people I respected like were throwing me shade. I'm like, all right, no big deal.
They probably
So
told
I
you you just got to tell them to put the Benadryl down.
Yeah, exactly. They was like, "Oh, they need to check their meds. Are they in therapy?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've asked all those questions. I'm not an idiot. I mean, come on, and I've been doing this for a while. So give me a break, okay?" I didn't just like, I didn't just start reciting the Necronomicon yesterday. It was, but yeah, and I basically devised a technique to get rid of this thing for him, and it was messed up. I mean, if you have the ability to see something, I mean, this thing was tall and imposing, and it was really nasty. Um, and then afterwards, his health improved, his energy improved, his luck improved. His family members like mysteriously got better, and every time I've gotten rid of someone's hat man, it seems to be the story of it's gotten like one hand in one generation and another hand in another, and it's just waiting to drain the life force of one generation and move on to the next. And I've even read stuff online where like people's children have seen it, and it's like, oh shit, the hat man's moving to like that generation. So,
That
but
leads me
yeah,
to
these things
a
will
question.
eventually drain the life force of you and kill you. So it's no joke.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I don't know if you're comfortable with a question that we talked about, how you've seen not a hat man, but the entity that
Oh, the hollow entity.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that'd be best to
Well, I
yeah.
mean, maybe. I don't see
No,
why
definitely
not.
not maybe anymore. But you know
So
what I
I
mean.
will say that from my different experiences, that like there's a certain type of parasite that's like kind of made of shadowy energy, and the Hat Man and even some other stuff that I don't even have names for. They also get composed of kind of the same stuff, the same energy, and that's just really interesting to me. And I don't have any answers, and there's not a lot of occultists that apparently have answers that I found, at least. If anyone has any, please enlighten me. I'd love to learn. I'm never too humble that I don't know enough that I can't be humble and learn at any given moment or be corrected. So please educate me. Um, but yeah, and then I've seen like Hatman time after time, and the same symptoms and the same thing. And I don't know if you want me to talk about like, how I got rid of them, or where do you want to go from here?
So we were specifically very curious. You brought up trilateral
Wrote it
Triangle
down.
manifestation.
that.
Yep.
And when we heard that, we're like, okay, so we got 3 candles. There's a crystal
Yep.
in the room, and
Yes.
so we were very curious, like just kind of how you'd break down that process in
Sure.
such a way that someone who basically in a way that someone else could do the same thing.
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to share. So a couple things you have to do beforehand. This is kind of an advanced technique. And just shameless plug, I talk about this in my book, Energy Magic. Shameless plug, shameless plug. But the what you can do, first off, you have to be able to feel energy or perceive it in some way. Now, some people are really good at seeing it, and it could be as simple as closing your eyes and trying to like imagine energy in front of you, or like I do, like, just literally feel the energy. And you can learn how to make an energy ball, which is like real simple. But the really easiest way to feel energy is just like warm up what's called your hand chakras. Just like how you have 7 major chakras, you can have hand chakras and foot chakras, and you can just go ahead and just like pump your hands like 10 times and then reverse them for a total of 20 each side, and that'll kind of warm up your ability to sense energy. I apologize, my basset hound's in the background and he's having a field day. Hold on.
You remember I told you about that?
Yeah.
Oh my
That
goodness.
confirms that. It's awesome.
Oh,
Oh, your dog's so cute.
Yeah. That's my
He's trying to
face.
eat your face.
Mwah. He's a
they
good
have
little
the
man.
floppiest ears.
They
I love
do.
it.
Yeah.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's like the craziest thing.
And they have such tiny legs like corgis. I love it. It's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna be a big boy. I'm gonna talk about him in relation to Hatman in a minute, so that's gonna be kind of interesting.
Ooh.
So kind of a preview of some magical stuff I've been working on that I haven't told a lot of people about. Anyway, so you have to be good at sensing energy and like feeling energy, and from there you have to learn how to manipulate it. Now this can be as simple as, and now energy, magical energy, will focus on basically it's shaped by intention and attention. So the fact that if you're making like an energy ball, the fact that you have an intention to feel an energy ball and you intend for this much energy to be in a certain location, well, that's going to help you like shape the energy. Now, I would probably say the best bridge to go from here is doing something like making an energy ball and like feeling it, and then just like holding it in place and then manipulating it with your mind and then seeing if you can feel it. So you don't have to like physically grab energy around. I mean, you can, but you can just as easily train yourself just literally through practice to like move that psychic energy with your mind. Okay. So
Really
that's kind of like one
reassuring.
thing.
It was
So
really reassuring because that's how I learned. That's how I
nice.
taught myself through all the different books I read in the past. And I was talking to Vera about that because we have what seems like 3 entities in our apartment, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it was influencing Vera, and that's another reason why Vera believes now. Like, let you speak for yourself, but I have worked with energy magic myself, and it's very reassuring hearing you say what I've learned. I'm like, oh, I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not the only one.
No, you're not crazy.
Exactly.
I'll remind me after this. I'll send y'all a electronic PDF of my book for you to peruse. So I think you guys get a kick out of it. So
Thank you.
yeah, of course. I'm happy to share knowledge. The rest of y'all out there are gonna have to buy it. So yeah, because you're not on the podcast. But so sensing energy, manipulating energy. Now the other thing is now this is where knowledge is really power. Goodness, this is where knowledge really is power. So if we look at, how can we put this? Okay, so we can talk about 4 different parts of the self. Okay, so there's a physical body, which is eventually going to die and decompose. Or if you're Hunter S. Thompson, cremated and shot out of a cannon, which is totally badass. Then you're going to have an energetic part. This is your astral body. Now, this is very much tied to your emotions. And this is where we were talking about the energy in the body and energy healing. This is where the energy is. You're literally your energetic body, and then you can literally project part of your consciousness, part of your energy somewhere. And this is where you go into like, astral projection on the physical plane, or anywhere else. This is where you go into remote viewing and like all that crazy esoteric stuff. Okay, so you have an astral body. Third, you have a mental body, which is like pure consciousness, which perceives everything. This is where, the place of the mind. And then you have a spiritual body, your spark of the divine, the part that, you know, if there was a big bang and everything got split into a zillion pieces, in each and every living thing is a spark of the divine. That's your spiritual self. Okay. So all that being said, when you work with an entity, a lot of entities are going to be more from like the mental realm or like the astral realm. Okay. So you have to, at the very, very least, be able to manipulate energy, because here's a secret hack that no one talks about in the books, is that the energy of chi that I'm manipulating an energy ball is the same energy that's made of the astral. It's literally the same stuff. So that being said, you can do stuff like create energetic portals and then project your consciousness through them. Now, where this kind of goes is, I'm going to talk about the other way, and that's if I can make an energetic portal that is stable, and this is what I'm going to call a triangle manifestation, literally like a triangle of energy with the intention of being a gateway between here and the astral. But here's the thing, I created that portal. I created that triangle, which makes me the commander of it. So I can control that at any given time. And I think this is where a lot of practitioners, especially starting out, and hey, I've been there, so I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody, is, you know, in my starting out, I forgot that I'm the one controlling things. And this is where you get a lot of ceremonial magic, you know, especially with demons, where it's like, you know, by the power of Jehovah, I can control these demons because I am a cisgendered white male who's been studying ceremonial magic for 40 years. So, but that being said, everyone is the commander of their own energy and their own magic. And like demons, angels, whatever, hey, they don't have a physical body. And our physical bodies are ginormous generators of magical energy. So we kind of have the upper hand here. Don't forget that, y'all. So you create a triangle manifestation, knowing that it's a gateway between us and the astral. And the more experience you have working with the astral, and being on the astral can be as easy as literally meditating, imagining you're in a space and moving the energy there, and then going to your physical body and like grabbing energy and playing with the energy back and forth. Real easy way to get to know the astral and its connection. Super easy. So from there, create a triangle manifestation. And then basically with Hatman is really weird, okay? Hatman's different than like a demon or any sort of other spirit for a simple reason. It's got a connection, okay? So real quick, everything has that energetic connection, okay? So like you and I are talking, okay? So we can say that if I'm working with chakras and I've got the fifth chakra, the chakra of communication, literally through us talking, we're creating an energetic cord between ourselves at a fifth chakra level, okay? Hatman will create an energetic cord between their victims. So all you have to do, kids out there in TV land, is literally warm up your hands, feel the connection that you have to your Hatman or someone else's Hatman, and kind of use that as an anchor. And then you literally can take that connection and then just put it into the triangle manifestation. Okay. So basically you're taking this cord and then you're kind of like, in a lot of ways, you're putting an energetic nail in it into the center of the triangle. Now, what this will do is this will take the aspect of the Hatman that's on the energetic aspect that's on the physical, but will also tie you to the energetic aspect that might be multidimensional. So you're doing some really complex shit real easily, okay? That you don't even have to, I'm really making it easy, okay? I mean, so once you have like that tether nailed down from Hatman, here's the thing, then you want to pretty much, in ceremonial magic, you might like call forth or do prayers or speak of epithets and say, oh, mighty demon, blah, blah, blah. This is what you're the in control of. And you're really using those words to like turn the dial to summon that demon to the triangle. Now, here, we're using the energetic tether as kind of like the rope. And so all you really have to do is imagine all the bad shit Hatman's done to you. Think of the nightmares, think of the sleep paralysis, and imagine like the cause of that is in that triangle manifestation, and Hatman will be there. So the next step is what I do, and this is optional, but I highly encourage, is once your hands are sensitive to energy, make sure Hatman's there, because I've noticed, just because the mind is very deceptive, if I'm not touching the energy and if I'm just imagining the energy in the head, then I don't know if something's real or not. For me, if I can touch it energetically, then I know it's real. So I advocate that. And because it's a triangle, Hatman can't hurt you because it's your triangle. From there, this is where it gets a little tricky, is, and even I don't have all the answers here, unfortunately. I can just tell you what I did and what worked. So I basically attacked Hatman until it shrunk down to a reasonable form. And what I mean by that is I do, oh, actually I have my magical cabinet like within arm's reach.
I was gonna
Let's
say, I
see.
remember you bringing up a firma or something like that.
Yeah, Furba. So what I did, actually I have my tools right here. So I have, oh, it's also easy if for portals. It's nice to have like kind of like a way to like switch them on and off. So you can do that mentally, but I also have lots of keys, lots and lots of keys.
Interesting.
But like with my spirit board, I actually like energetically have a keyhole and I make an energetic key so that would to turn on my spirit board when I want to talk to spirits, I have to like use an energetic key. Anyway,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, it really
Makes
helps.
sense.
That's so cool.
Makes total
Makes
it really
sense.
helps. So I'm going to show you my athame, and my athame, I got this back when I first started. It's by Omega in Minnesota. They do amazing work. So you can kind of take a look at it. Playing like
That's
a little like
beautiful.
occulty show and tell here. Thanks. Design is a blessed thistle in the end for the pommel. But anyway, with my athame, what I did was I've also worked with angels, specifically Archangel Michael or Michael. And Michael is a total badass, and he's got like a big flaming sword, you know, because he's cool. And what I did was I basically used my connection to the Archangel Michael to fill my athame with as much like chi of from him as possible, and pretty much kind of have my own like flaming athame, so to speak. And I use that in conjunction with Furba, which is actually my travel kit someplace else. So but Furba is basically a Tibetan dagger. Oh no, it's right here. So Furba is a Tibetan dagger, and I'm not going to go with the lore of it, but pretty much because of its like sacred geometry, it literally can poke a hole in spirits. Now here, it only helped me kind of deflate Hatman a little bit, not destroy him. So what I was doing is with my Furba and with my athame, I was really attacking the crap out of them. Now, you don't need tools, of course, because it's all about, you know, helping with energy, helping, you know, manipulate and focus energy. So what you can easily do is just imagine as much pissed off energy as you have and just like literally blast the fuck out of it. That'll be very effective. But basically, I just attacked, see how low it got, kept attacking until I shrunk it down to about that big. And then I grabbed the crystal. I think I still. And I actually used one of these I had handy at the time, but you can easily use like crystal handy. And what you can do is just like there's energetic shielding, you can strengthen your aura, you can make different types of shields, of course. There's lots of different people who can talk about this. You can read lots of their books or mine. And basically, instead of creating a shield for protection, I created a shield as a containment unit. And I put that in the middle of my triangle of manifestation. And after I beat Hatman down till he was kind of, super weak, I just literally willed him into the crystal. Now, beforehand, I did program the crystal not only be containment, but I also programmed it to have like a more suction effect. And for those of you where it's hard to visualize like how sucking energy is because it kind of does feel weird, like with your hands, just use your breath as a key, to key in that motion. So like, breathing in, what I basically did was I breathed in and imagined the crystal sucking, and I just kept on imagining my breathing in as a way of teaching the crystal how to suck things in and wind things into it. And then when something was in it, then I just like mentally, close the gates and hit the switch, if you will. So, all right. So I've got Hatman. I've gone from there's a Hatman. I figure out the cord to the Hatman. I use the cord to like knock him, to nail him down, go in attack mode, have a crystal that I've got programmed, put him into the crystal, and then you can just close things down. You can put down the triangle manifestation and then do any cleanup. Now, of course, do this energetically. Of course, lots of people like sage. I personally like sound because one, sound is great because sound will literally disrupt any energy. And if you're allergic to smoke or if you've got asthma or COPD or something, you don't have to worry about that. So that's a really nice way to banish as well as with sound. So make sure everything's clean, and then you got to figure out what the fuck to do with the crystal. Now, this is where it gets fun. Um, if you're nice and you don't know exactly what the origins of Hatman are, and maybe that Hatman is a sentient entity of some sort, maybe it just, came on hard times and so one time I disposed of a hat man, and actually a few times I've disposed of them in cemeteries. I've just gone, especially Catholic cemeteries, because once again, Catholic priests are excellent ceremonial magicians, and they do all the work for me, and they're paid for it. So they've gone and made like a nice consecrated place where I can just drop a crystal in a nice discreet place, and I'll let that energy of the cemetery do its thing. The cemeteries are really good at breaking down energy. So from there, or if you like, you can keep them as souvenirs of your hunt. And as such, what you can do theoretically is energy has lots of interesting properties. You can see it, you can feel it. Some people, you can actually smell it. There's actually the psychic art of smelling things. Or like I have a friend who, like, whenever dead people are around, she'll smell roses because when their grandmother died, there were roses. So what I'm going to do with my lucky little basset hound here, we're going to do a fun little experiment of trying to train him to basically sense out different energies. And theoretically, if I can train him right, I don't know if I'm able to do it. This is totally an experiment. If I could have him sense out different energies, it'd be really cool if I could have him sense out people that are possessed by things like, or connected to Hatman, or different other entities that aren't good. And I can say, hey, you know what? I think something might be wrong. Can I help you? And they'll say, well, as a matter of fact, I have had sleep paralysis. It's funny you mentioned that, Mark. So
I can't see why that wouldn't work, because I believe that dogs, they easily sense spirits just as much as, as you learn as a human being and whatnot, or
Well, that
how
and
kids
we
can sense spirits and they try to tell everybody,
that and we just learned that like the way that a dog's sense of smell is hooked up to their brain, that's how they see the world. And so
yeah.
understanding that that's how dogs see the world is through smell, it kind of paints a different picture. Like, okay, if I didn't shower that day, maybe my dog sees me as a steaming pile of shit that day or something. I don't know. But but naturally my first concern when I hear like taking a dog out to do that kind of thing, like what would you do to kind of keep the little guy protected?
I'm glad you asked that. I already thought about that actually. So what I can do is you can, of course, energetically strengthen your aura, and that can be your shield, or you can create lots of different shields. And that's a whole different magical class. And I really need to up my videos on social media. But like, I just took this off. This is a bracelet I have where I've keyed it for protection, and it's tiger's eye. As the 3 types of tiger's eye. It has yellow tiger's eye, which is good for general protection, red tiger's eye, which is good for more aggressive protection, shall we say, and then blue, which is good for psychic protection. So I can easily just key some like semi-precious stones and have them on my little guy's collar to protect him from anything.
Okay.
And of course, I will like do an extra shield beforehand, just like I view anything as surgery and I oomph up an extra shield that's disposable. I do one for him before I go anywhere. And I probably just do regular psychic maintenance on him, just like I do regular psychic and energetic maintenance on myself.
That's awesome.
My next thought with that is like, can you get like, I have to imagine a dog can figure out how to meditate.
They probably already
if they watch you do it. I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of think that animals, just because they don't think as much as we do, and I mean, not that they're not as cognizant, because I mean, look at cats or like crows or all sorts of animals that can do puzzles and you can form relationships with just like people, sometimes even better than people. But I think that they're just more chill. I've definitely had cats, as familiars that have like taken care of energetic like things. And like I would literally see something scurry out of the corner of my eye, and then like next thing I knew, my cat was like running after it. I was like, oh, that's weird. So yeah, I definitely think our animals are, one, they have better senses than we are, but I also think they're more chill, because here's the other thing. And here's a great magical tip that I didn't realize until much later. the more you relax, the better magic's going to be. And if you have anxiety about something that you're trying to do magic for or on, you're going to have more problems. So, for example, a lot of occultists are broke ass mofos. Okay. And they're like trying to do all this money magic and trying to do all this prosperity magic. But then, like, right before then, they looked at their bank account balance and they're freaking out about rent. So, that anxiety about money is going to block their magic to acquire money. So on a similar note, animals are just more chill, and they can do a lot more than I think we have any idea of. And I think that's really an unexplored aspect of magic.
It's true. That's a very good point.
I definitely like to read more about familiars and things like that. I know we had a couple more questions about the ritual itself, you
Yeah,
know,
of course.
of banishing Hatman. Did you
Did
have
that
any
make sense? Did I break that down
specific-
pretty okay, by the way?
Oh, very much so. I think
Okay.
it was very, very more detailed than what the other guy asked you. Not to be mean to the other podcaster,
Oh, no, no, not at all.
but I feel like he didn't ask you enough questions. I don't know.
But one of those
Mm.
questions I was going to ask was going to be, what kind of crystal did you use? Was it a quartz?
Yeah, so I use the amethyst. I use this. I had a whole bunch of these amethyst points, and I use that. And I like amethyst because one, it's a little bit, for lack of a better term, a little bit stronger for a simple reason. Amethyst is really good for like opening up psychic things, but it's also good for kind of containing and dampening other energies. So it does kind of seem like the right thing to do. And my general rule of all crystals is that everyone says like what they have different properties, but there's like a laundry, like a menu of properties, and then you can choose from that menu what to focus on the most and enhance. So lots of people you can use lots of different crystals for lots of different things. So if anyone tells you can only use one certain crystal for one certain thing, tell them I personally told them to fuck off, and you can
Yep.
give them. But yeah, I also am a big fan of quartz, just because quartz is like the white candle of the crystal world. I mean, it's generic. You can do anything with it, really. So I mean, it's like tofu. It's magical tofu.
That makes
It's
sense.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
never gonna see tofu and quartz the same after you said that. That's
That's
great.
great.
I also kind of pictured, like, I don't know if this is a normal part of triangular manifestation or not, but do you kind of like, we've talked about energy shields and energy barriers like that before, where you picture light in whatever color calls to you or something to that effect. And so
Sure.
I was wondering if that like was something that you thought of, or if that was even something that you would recommend.
Oh, doing that sort of shielding?
Yeah.
That's what I've
Yeah.
learned. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's
turning that
I literally
around.
talk about, man, I got to give y'all the book. So so yeah, so with shielding, just since you asked, like the real 25-cent shield you can do is just meditate. Think of something you find protective, like it could be more of like something like noxious, or more just like a simple no thank you, or it could be a get the fuck off. Like imagine what sort of protection energy. So I'll say meditate, and as you're meditating, imagine that there's an energetic shield around you. Give it a color that you think of as protective. Think of as much emotions and memories with protection that work for you, but also think of a word. So the simple reason that whenever someone needs a shield, all they have to do is think about a color and a word, and they instantly have a shield, just like opening an umbrella. So you can do all sorts of different shields. I do a lot of study with alchemy, and I broke down a lot of alchemy to something really simple, so that you can actually do alchemical shields where the energy that's being thrown at you is broken down, purified, connected to the divine, and then used to strengthen you. So here's a tip to my haters out there. Thank you for all the energy and the extra years of life and longevity, because with my alchemical shields, I'm literally taking whatever hates at me and using that to strengthen me. So
That is beautiful. I love that.
Same. Yep. It's really reassuring to hear the way you explain it, because that's how I learned it years ago myself. And I was always like, well, it feels real to me. So it's awesome to hear from
This is why you need to
someone that
network more with more like-minded people. And that's why I'm glad we got him on the show, so that we could not just validate
happy.
things
Thank
that
you
you've
for
read,
being on the show and whatnot.
but also to be able to poke and ask questions like that and stuff. Do you have our questions handy?
I do. But I
Yeah.
think
And y'all are cool. So if you have any like magical questions outside of here, just like message me. I mean, I'm literally the most accessible pagan occult author out there. So
I love that you said that because I know that
yeah, thank you
authors
so much.
generally are kind of like, no, this is my art form, this is my lane. And I know I see this a lot with musicians because I used to interview a lot of musicians too that kind of like put up that wall. They want
Mhm.
you, they want to be hard to reach because it kind of adds to the mysticism of them, so to speak. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't mess with that energy. I guess, I mean,
I'd like to ask a question real quick.
go for it.
Anything.
I don't know if it's something to do. I feel like it's something to do with this apartment, or it could be, you know, people. What I've learned, people, if someone hates you or doesn't like you, they could send out, without even being a practitioner, negative
Yeah,
energy at you and can
absolutely.
almost implant a, you know, parasite, what you explained.
Yep.
And for every, it's almost every, I don't know how often it happens, but I've experienced, since moving here, just attacks of like sleep paralysis, but I'm able to get out of it because I practice lucid dreaming. But it's just still frustrating. 'Cause I'm like, what the heck is attacking me?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I can totally answer that question. So man, you all really need this book. So here's the thing. So one time, a friend of mine was on, I can't remember. It was either like a political or feminist like thing or something like Supercharged where there's like trolls. I can't remember to be honest. And a friend of mine was like, "Wow, I feel really bad and like really drained." I'm like, "Okay, how's your sleep?" Like, my sleep's been okay. And I said, "Okay, you know what the heck? Maybe there's like some magic. Well, maybe someone put a curse on you. Ha ha ha." So I said, "Let me check you out energetically." And lo and behold, there was this energetic dart lodged in this person, like lodged in their aura, like a big chunk of nasty. And so I just, removed, shielded myself first. Always shield yourself, kids, before you help others. So I removed that energetic dart, if you will, and then I, of course, did some healing and sealed them back up, nice and shiny new. But I was like, who are you talking to? Like, what? Like the only time I had seen that previously, like that hardcore, was someone who's a victim of like Mexican sorcery. I was like, man, like who the fuck did you piss off? This is really nasty. And they're like, I don't know. I just on some boards and like there's this one guy who was particularly nasty and he was just like, some dude in the middle of nowhere who was, some neckbeard guy from 4chan or something. And but lo and behold, that neckbeard guy from 4chan put the whammy on my friend like pretty bad, as if they were a trained practitioner. And so then I really started thinking, um, and I'm not gonna lie, people have like some people have successfully put curses on me, believe it or not, it happens. I'm not a god. So, but the few times this happened, doesn't happen very often, so nobody get any ideas. Um, there's this old witch who like put the whammy on me, and I was like, how the hell did she do that? And I asked a friend of mine who's really good, like, how the hell did this woman who's like literally her car is full of garbage, she's a hoarder, there's a hole in her ceiling, and the rain's coming in, she's poor as hell, and is probably gonna die of cancer in like a year. How the hell did she put the whammy on me? And he said, it's very, very simple. Her life was so nasty. All she had to do was channel the nastiness she already had just by thinking about it.
That
That
makes a
really
lot of
made me think.
sense.
And that really made me think. And it said, well, shit, that's why energetic shielding is really important for no matter what you do. And really that speaks to the fact that everyone can do magic. So I would recommend a couple things. One, energetic maintenance, checking out your aura, checking out your energy, checking out, of course, all the basic stuff. If you had enough water, enough food, if enough to eat, sleep, etc. But regular energetic maintenance is really a good thing to do. Also, make some friends. We can't always see our blind spots. Just like when you're driving, it's kind of nice you got a passenger that says, hey, check my blind spot. So make friends who are practitioners, and magic isn't supposed to be a solitary thing. you know, have someone check out your energy on a regular basis that you trust. And that's what I would recommend. The other thing is, I was talking about cords and everything as an energetic cord. Well, like cords can form really fast and really intensely. I mean, someone can cut you off in traffic and you can form a cord. So I highly recommend part of your energetic maintenance to like do cord cutting on a regular basis. Now, cord cutting be as simple. Now, I know everyone goes on TikTok and it's like, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend. I'm going to do a cord cutting ceremony, blah, blah, blah. Now, the reason those don't work all the time, sometimes they do, but the reason they don't work a lot is you're only doing sympathetic magic and you're not directly dealing with the energetic connection. So I'm actually working on a whole book on cord cutting magic where it's like talking about how cords form, the different ways, and how to cut them or negotiate them. But the really easy thing is you can take like your athame, like I showed, or you have one of these. These are fun. This is a selenite dagger I use for cord cutting, and it actually has like the symbols of the chakras on it. And you can easily just like put the intention of waving, cut away any cords that are unnecessary because energy follows intention. And that way you're not cutting away like your cord that's connected you to your parents or your partner or something. So it's an easy way. So once again, regular energetic maintenance can help a lot with those things. And here's the thing: most practitioners, especially if they're not trained, their cord is going to almost make that their magical dart is almost going to be more like a tentacle and still connecting them to you. So this is how you can do a real quick reversal magic. You pull out the energy of someone and just send it back to them. Real freaking easy. Now, of course, if you're putting the whammy on someone yourself, cut the cord on that dart before you throw it, and then they can't trace it back to you as easy. Or if you have an entity like do it for you, then they're going to trace it back to that entity, and they won't even have like your energetic trace on whatever dart that you're throwing on someone.
That
I'm
makes
just saying.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
No problem.
Shit, that summed it up very well. So
Explains a lot.
before we start to wrap things up, I think I have two more questions. I don't know about you. But one of the things that you kind of touched on, and I was wondering if you have expanded on this theory at all, is you mentioned this idea that you pondered over that the Hatman, because they have a hive mind, you explained that maybe there could be like almost like how ants and bees are, there could be a queen that controls all of them. Have you spent any time developing that theory any further?
No, and I'll be totally butt honest on this one. I'm a little afraid to go that far. Back, I'm not gonna name names. But back in the day, I had a very because like the parasites that people get are kind of similar, connected to that Hatman. There's a certain type of parasite that's almost like the flea and tick version of Hatman, if you will. That a friend of mine like was trying to get someone depossessed by this parasite, as if you would like depossess a demon, and his strategy was to talk to the mama of it, and because he found out that there was kind of like this weird, it was like the parasite was kind of like the baby, and so he wanted to talk to mama and kind of witnessing and feeling what he experienced and assisting him. These things were huge, like really freaking huge, like stupid huge. And here's the thing: if Hatman does have a hive mind, I'm very happy to take him one-on-one. Shoot, I'm even happy to take him a few at a time. That didn't sound right. But what I can do, I'm very uncomfortable at this point just because of I've got too much to do and I'm a busy person. I don't want to investigate the queen or king of the Hatmen, for a simple reason. I don't know what that's going to start. I'm not, I don't want to poke a sleeping bear. They've already been sent after me because of the hive mind, and they know that I can take care of them, which I'm sure is making them think twice. But something that's even stronger than a Hatman that can control who knows how many Hatman. How many bees are per one queen? What, thousands?
Yeah.
That takes a lot of strength of will, wouldn't you say?
And that's why I was so curious about this, because like it's such a fascinating concept that first of all, people shouldn't be seeking out the Hat Man to begin with, but the
No,
fact that
no.
people encounter him and they deal with so much trauma from it, and to
Yes.
think that something could be controlling the masses of them, kind of like ants or bees, and it's a terrifying concept. And if no one has taken that and turned it into a graphic novel yet, somebody should.
Maybe I'll do that.
I mean, that'd be a fun route.
Would be. I mean, Grant Morrison, who wrote the comic book The Invisibles, is a chaos magician, and the Invisibles graphic novel is literally a visual spell to create actual invisibles. So there's that. And there's, of course, Alan Moore, who's a ceremonial magician, who wrote like Watchmen and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, honestly, I don't want to poke around to like the mama or daddy um Hatman head because I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know, I'll be straight. I don't know if I'm strong enough to deal with that without like a team of people. I mean, even like dealing with one Hatman, I mean, I'll tell you, like when I first started taking care of, working with, working against these things, one of them took like a big ass chunk out of me. I mean, it took me like a month to recover. And like energetically, like a literal chunk was out, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I could just do energy healing and like put that energy there. It took me a while to recover. So the other thing I really would caution people is I've had a couple of practitioners said, oh, but Hatman's not bad. Hatman will come to me and we'll talk, and Hatman likes me. Those people who have said that are really good people, and I've liked them. At the same time, horrible things happen to them. So even if you don't think, and I just want to kind of go on another thing. So a lot of these parasites and even Hatman, I think like a lot of Christians and other people would say that those are demons. Okay. And these are different, of course, from like the goetic demons or other demons that were like once fallen angels or other spirits or, gods that were, demonized. I think those demons are like one thing, but like Hatman and like these parasites, I think those are like the actual demons. And then if there really is like a king or queen bee, maybe that's like the actual archetype for, the Christian devil, as opposed to like, Lucifer or Samael or anything like that. So, or Lucifer, of course. So,
I
and
mean,
of course, I'm not saying not to knock Satanists or Luciferians, because I have tons of Luciferian friends, and I really think that the energy and entity they're working with is way, way different from any like, king or queen of the Hatmen. So
yeah,
also, most of the Satanists I know, because of the very nature, are some of the most polite motherfuckers I've ever met. And I really wish a lot of the pagans would like have the manners of like some Satanists, because I've met Satanists with impeccable manners.
Yep.
I take pride in that. But seriously though, well, actually, I mean, we've run into quite a few pagans on TikTok that are just straight up rude. Like the one guy we were watching the other day.
Back when I studied into paganism, and I was curious of what was it called?
Norse paganism.
Norse paganism. I was trying to find like different people to talk with, and a lot of them came off like rude or just like, oh, I don't go learn on your own kind of thing, until I went to Salem, Massachusetts, where I learned a handful of nice people like yourself and really polite and wanting to share knowledge and whatnot. So it feels like it depends on where you live,
It
know.
does. And I'll say that if you ever run into some Norse pagans or heathens that are rude, very simple thing is saying, do you believe in the virtues of heathenry? And they'll say, why, of course I do, which is a
Yep.
total different thing. And they'll say, you can say, are you familiar with hospitality? And they'll
Yep.
say, yes, yes. And you can say, well, I've invited you into my internet space through this conversation. You are a guest of my energy, and you are violating hospitality. How do you think your gods will sit with that?
Yep. It's a good reminder to say to them.
Well, you actually brought that up because you read back into Norse paganism after seeing that guy, and you were like, this guy's completely contradicting himself. But it's just too funny how often that happens. And it's also another thing that should be said is that like within every community, no matter what community you're in, you're gonna find bad eggs. It's just the way that humanity is. There's some people that are just struggling and hurting for whatever reason, and they're looking to externalize that in some way. So it ends up being misguided and you get caught in the crossfire. Most of mine is, Church of Satan members, because I think independently of that form of Satanism, and I kind of branch out and I'm curious of other things, and I don't just regurgitate what Anton LaVey said. So it's not to say that not all of them are polite, but you will be surprised how many of them will be extremely polite. And same goes for, I'd say, Wiccans, but I've also met some very gatekeepy Wiccans.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. But with that said,
It's
I
weird.
mean, definitely just check their energy. Try to like read them first, regardless of what they believe in or what, similarities you might think you have with those people.
Absolutely.
Yep. And
Yeah,
I want to say again,
there's
like,
definitely some.
I'm sorry, there was like something froze in the system. I don't know if it was our end or on your end. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Was it our end? Oh, if our end froze. Sorry. But I just wanted to say again, thank you for the knowledge, the information about pulling out the what was it called? That it was the energy of someone that a dart that would throw at you. Because I already know like a handful of people that have already for no reason want to cause harm towards, myself or, or you, and whatnot. So it helps a lot being like, oh, like hearing that from, someone that's very knowledgeable. Definitely helps. So now I know where to, what to search more, what to do. Did you have questions? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
You're fine.
interrupt. Okay.
I was actually curious what he was about to say next.
Yep, sorry.
It's all right. I honestly don't remember. I have ADHD, so it goes in the brain and then it flies away to the astral. So
It might have been our Wi-Fi because it completely froze. I didn't realize that like yeah, sound kind of froze right when you were about to speak. Because I saw you were about to speak, and I'm like, wait a minute. Gotta love Wi-Fi and all that. There's always issues with internet.
You know what? What's interesting is I've noticed that there's been more of an uptick in spiritual activity, which I know totally makes me sound like I'm in the Ghostbusters movie from the 80s, like, oh, the spiritual activity is a
Not
lot
at all.
higher.
I've
But
noticed.
so I was at a workshop at Mystic South in Atlanta, and there's these really great people who are from the British Isles who are now in the States. God, I can't remember their book. I'll have to find it. But they said something really interesting. And they had this theory that the amount of Wi-Fi is actually like creating like this bed of magical energy. So that the more we're connected electronically, the more we are going to get like spiritual activity. And that made sense to me because my theory is that, energy is like kind of this pool and that you can draw upon. So for example, if someone is using like cemetery dirt in like a magical working, that stuff's really powerful because it's really like all this complex energy because a human life is very complex and it's a very complex energetic being that's their energetic parts decompose. So you're like, decomposing energetic bodies in a cemetery, enriching the soil. So that soil is like really magically potent. So I think it's like that everywhere. Anywhere there's like that saturation of energy and, or information, if you will. And I use that in the sense how when people are talking about black holes, when light is coming to a black hole, it's really like energy that's being condensed. They talk about that in physics, which is really freaking fascinating. But there's a lot of information and energy and potential and things, and you can draw upon that. And I definitely think there's something going on with the Wi-Fi there and spirituality. So
It's funny you bring that up because even though I don't subscribe to the idea that 5G is a net negative for humanity, I've also heard people talk about it in the sense that like with Wi-Fi and 5G and things like it and Bluetooth and things like that, they're basically the way they communicate is through frequency hopping, which is something I literally just read this morning. And so thinking about it in that sense, like a lot of energy magic is done through understanding that like reading energy is also kind of like reading frequencies and stuff like that. So
correct.
it stands to reason that that could disrupt signals. It could cause disruptions on a plane that on any plane really, especially if you subscribe to the idea that the stacked universe theories, that we're all kind of just cohabitating on the same plane, just different
Exactly.
levels of awareness and shit. So it
Exactly.
stands to reason absolutely that like it could definitely play a role in that.
No, I completely agree. I think you're completely on the money.
Shit. My only other question going forward, as we wrap this up was, what else are you planning on writing about? What else do you have in the works that you're comfortable talking about?
So make an extremely long story short, and I swear all I have is long stories at this point in my life. My goal is to publish 100 books in 10 years. Okay.
That's awesome.
So I actually just spoke with my publisher a little while ago, and I'm kind of talking with another publisher. So right now, the books I can talk about, working on an intro to like paganism book, but it's different because instead of saying this is how you're Wiccan or this is how you're an occultist or this is how you're a Satanist or whatever, it's an intro to paganism, magic, and the occult, or paganism, witchcraft, and the occult, because they're kind of like drawing on the same doorway, if you will, same entry point, like coming in at all three of those things. And so I wanted like people have really good information, and I wanted people to like analyze their beliefs and also look about what the landscape is and also what's not there and the questions that they need to ask going forward as they have their own contributions to like these spiritual movements and things. So that's one thing I'm working on. That'll be kind of a shorter book, like 30,000 words. I'm also working on a book on Medusa, and that's a whole long story. There's lots of books on Hecate, and lots of people like love Medusa. How many people have Medusa tattoos now, or work with Medusa magically? But there's no books on Medusa, magically speaking, in terms of working with her egg as a deity. So I'm working on that. What's the other one? I have a spreadsheet actually. Oh yeah, I'm working on the cord cutting book. The cord cutting book is like 40,000 words done. Oh, and of course, the other book I'm working on a book. So I have a nonprofit for like pagan and occults, like do good, be a do-gooder in the pagan and occult communities. So I have what's called the Pagan Elder Assistant Fund that I'm working on. So if there's like a pagan or occult elder that needs help, like, hey, I need money for my meds this month, or like they're going to kick me out and I need like $500 for rent, I can just draw them a check for my nonprofit within the blink of an eye without thinking. So I have a book called Voices of Our Pagan Elders, and I'm going to have at least 13 interviews from different pagan elders of different places and walks of life, and them talking about what being an elder is, their experiences. I have people like Janet Farrar, who like knew Alexanders who started the Alexandrian tradition. I have people like Ivo Dominguez Jr. I've got a whole bunch of other people. So that book, all money I would make, all the royalties from that's going to go straight to the Pagan Elder Assistance Fund in an actual nonprofit, registered nonprofit.
Beautiful.
So
That's
that's another
awesome.
book I'm working on. So that's 3 books I'm talking about. And then there's a couple I can't talk about. And oh yeah, and I'm also of course working on a sequel to Energy Magic, but that's probably not going to be published for another like 2 years or so. So
Nice.
yeah, and I've got a whole bunch of other stuff. Also, I'm writing some fiction, and I'm trying to have some of the fiction not be so outlandish that you can't say, hey, how do they do magic in this book? Well, guess what? If you read this other book that Mark wrote or someone else wrote, that Christopher Penzac or Matt Aaron wrote, it's magic that's actually doable. And so I want to incorporate that into fiction. There's this amazing author, if anyone doesn't know, Dion Fortune. She wrote one of the first and best books on psychic self-defense. She was amazing, totally eccentric, totally powerful practitioner. But she wrote fiction, nonfiction books about the occult, but also fiction books that illustrated those concepts and how to use them and how they actually might play out. So I kind of want to do a similar thing and follow in her footsteps in that manner. So
That'd
I've
be
got a 13 book young adult series that I'm working on, and I've got all sorts of stuff. So
very cool.
Very
That's
fascinating.
awesome.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. How can people get a hold of you if they are curious about what you're working on, or just to ask questions?
yeah, of course. So you can just go to my website, marknecampjr.com. So if you Google my name, if you just Google Mark Necamp, and that's Necamp, and Energy Magic, you'll come to my website. And then all my social information's there. I have an author page on Facebook. I've got Instagram, of course, TikTok, and I'm really easy to get a hold of. I think I don't know if my cell phone number is on there. I know I give it out on my business card. So, but I'm literally very easy to reach, and I'm really here just to help and spread knowledge. I'll be honest, being an occult or pagan author, you don't make a lot of money unless you're Matt Oren. I mean, Matt's books are selling like hotcakes. And there's a few people who make a living of it, like Morgan Damler, who's just an outstanding practitioner and like the authority on like fairies and magic and witchcraft. He's amazing. So there are people making money off of this. I have a day job in sales and marketing. I don't need to like be pagan to like make money here. So I do a lot of stuff for free. I do a lot of stuff just to help people and get information out there, because at the end of the day, you know, my kids aren't following my footsteps in magic and the occult. Okay. You know, what the only thing that I'm going to leave behind when I die is the fact that I've helped some people and I've made the world a little bit of a better place. And maybe more people are doing magic. And that's pretty much good enough for me. So I'm very accessible. I'm here to answer questions. Part of the reason I also kind of don't gatekeep myself and I have like looser boundaries on getting a hold of me is that even if someone is like crazy, they'll actually have some interesting questions that make me think. And it makes me redefine my practice sometimes, or at least think about some creative ways to do magic that I might not have thought of. So we're all in this kind of invisible college of magic where we're learning from things that might even seem a little strange or outlandish.
It's definitely very helpful. 'Cause I have
Absolutely.
so many more questions, so definitely will be reaching out to you myself. So
Sounds good.
yeah, thank you so much.
You're very
All right,
welcome.
guys.
This was fun.
If you're not already following us on Instagram, it's Victim Matrix Podcast on Instagram, victimmatrixpodcast@gmail.com. If you've got questions for us, questions that we can forward over to our guests, or honestly, this is our first guest, so who am I talking to here? But right now, the podcast is only on Spotify. We're working on getting out to more platforms. Definitely going to be doing YouTube. So branching out, maybe do live streams on Twitch. We'll see. But for right now, this is what we got. Thanks again, Mark. Hang tight. We're gonna give you a proper farewell before we get out of here. But thank you again so much for coming on here.
Thank
You're very
you.
welcome. Thank you, guys.